All right, I think it's working now. Good Lord. Hit that like. Let me know you're there. Come on. I'll be up in just 1 second. Checking my audio and my video and the audio of the video and the thingamajigers. Reopening my pages. I love the smell of random crashes in the morning. It's a good time. Come on. Excellent. All right. Hit the like, everybody. Come on, everybody. All right, I'm not going to really take 5 minutes to start. I'm going to take like 2. So give me a second while I pull my pages back up. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's get started. First of all, welcome to the show. I want to thank the Kansas City Chiefs on their preordained win yesterday. We knew it. You know, I love it when a plan comes together. Yeah. And I think we can all be proud that that Dark Brandon and his acolytes, myself included, were pivotal in making everything come off the way it was supposed to. We're all very proud. It was very difficult at one point because we have to bank shot certain magic spells off of Taylor Swift's third eye and into, to make Kelsey lose his crap and yell at the coach, and then that triggered the signal to the other team to try really hard and yet fail, which was, I think, the key to the plan entirely. That was the big one, was like, how do we get these guys to try really hard and yet still lose? Like it's, I don't know, like a real sporting event or the Super Bowl or something. It's just strange. Yeah. So it's a curious thing. But oh my gosh, I didn't realize people could see my Dark Brandon eyes. Hi, I'm back to normal. Good to see you. Welcome. Happy Monday. How are you? Tara Dublin will be rocking the second hour with us in just a little bit. I'm Hal Sparks, and this is Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. We're live everywhere that matters, including Instagram right now. Hello, Instagram people. You strange individuals who are looking at me sideways, I suppose. No, I think the actual, if I may, the show itself, I'm fixing my little proud Biden voter thing on there because it's a little off. I'm going to move this up, and then it's just a little feng shuiing that I have to do for the screen itself. Oh, so much better. So much better. Also, the tip jar is right there. I have it set on a very low thing, so you have to do a lot to impress us all with filling the tip jar. Also, Venmo, and of course, thank you to our patrons for making the show possible and moving us one step closer to what I would like to call lovingly the road rig, which is going to be very necessary because of a bunch of sexy liberal dates that are coming out, which I was waiting. Little insight. Oh, by the way, hi, chat room. Let me say hi to the chat room. Hello, good morning. Hi. Um, the installation version. Thanks very much. Hello. Hi, hi everyone. Watching Hal from rainy Vancouver. Oh, that's nice. Beautiful, eh? I appreciate you watching my show, you hoser. So lots to talk about. Oh, the Sexy Liberal show. So I was very excited to tell you guys all about the Sexy Liberal shows, but I was waiting for the permission to officially, for the tickets to go on sale or the go ahead from the powers that be. And apparently it all leaked online this weekend. All the dates that were up there got posted someplace. I don't know why. I literally at one point had a moment where I was like, did I read these out loud when I said that? I don't remember saying anything about them. Who could have possibly? That's when you think like, because as we say around here, you can't leak a lie. So anytime the truth comes out, I have a propensity to just say it, even when it's dates and whatnot that I'm not supposed to say quite yet. But in the meantime, we're all over the place. It was sort of a secret, I guess. I mean, they want to announce them and then announce when tickets go on sale and kind of do the publicity push, right? Yeah, I didn't put the dates out. I just told where. And a lot of those were already kind of known, like Madison, Wisconsin and Albuquerque and Chicago. Chicago, by the way, the one date I can talk about, August 12th in Chicago, is not as it is to say a Live Nation date. Live Nation, I guess, is going to be setting up our tour. It's like us and Nickelback and Taylor Swift. It's us, Taylor Swift, and Nickelback. And yeah, Sexy Liberal. We all have the power. We all have obviously the inside scoop, and we're all coordinating our endeavors together. That said, how are you giving away Randy Rainbow tickets? Anyways. You were born in Evanston, Illinois. That's cool, Georgina. I love Evanston. I have many great memories of going to the movie theater on Central. Yeah. Anyways, so yes, lots of dates coming up. The Chicago one, August 12th. Tickets are on sale now already. That is not one of the other dates that have been added, and it is already there. So, and tickets are going very fast. Like I heard that it's months away and it's almost sold out. So, and it's at the Vic, which is one of my favorite theaters. For those of you that don't know, as I grew up in Chicago, went to high school there. I lived in Kentucky till I was 14, but I moved to Chicago and I consider that home because that's where I really grew up. That's where the Hal was formed. A lot of my backstory obviously came from Kentucky, but it's, those pivotal places where you're like, oh, okay, this is who I get to be in life. That thing? Yeah. So, Chicago's a lot of great memories for me, especially around places like the Vic, where I went and saw King's X for the first time. I saw King's X and Blue Murder. Oh, yeah. Oh, and a Level 5 Hype Train. King's X, Blue Murder, and they were opening for Billy Squier, which I was not excited about. Made sense, as far as them, he was a much bigger act at the time, but I was only interested in seeing King's X and Blue Murder. And then I was like, I don't really care about Billy Squier. So I went down and I hit on the girl who was working in the coat room, and I dated her for 6 months. We'd have kept dating, but she lived down in the city, and at that point I didn't have access to a car regularly, and the train was difficult. It wore very heavily on the relationship, school and whatnot. And she was 3 years older than me. I think she was going off to college already. I was, yeah. So, yeah. Yes, I was always into older women. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, it's a great time. Yes, and go Cubs. So where are we? Oh, I'm so scrambled because of I started my show off, got it rolling, and then for whatever reason the audio wasn't. Literally, all my audio gear was just dark. The screens were dark. I'm like, this is not good. So I had to do a restart, and then I had to reopen all my pages. And there's all these stories, and there's so much stuff going on, and it's crazy. And yes, I was a stud in high school. It's true. It's just quite true. I did all right. It's a thing. It's the thing about being cute. And I have what's known as in the industry as accessible good looks. Which is the other people's way of saying you're cute. not quite handsome, but cute, right? It's a sort of a backhanded compliment. In Hollywood, they literally, that's the phrase. Yeah. Accessible. Good look. Thanks very much. Thanks a lot. Accessible. I mean, so yeah. You mean I can't play hard to get? Au contraire. I beg your pardon. Hmm. I have a tooth glint. I think it might be the screen issue over there. But that's nice. Yeah, bing, like when I talk. Anyways, all right, let's talk. There's a lot of news this morning, not the least of which is, I suppose, it's hard to decide what was the biggest news over the weekend, other than I guess the fact that, oh, you rat, the fact that I'll bring the screen up in a second. Go over to here and go to that monitor. There we go. Done. Was that Dark Brandon gave the Chiefs a win yesterday. Can I just say, who watched the Super Bowl yesterday? Let's go back, chat room. Who watched the actual game? I watched the whole thing. It was very exciting. It was. I didn't really have a dog in either fight, but and it was funny because Summer's teams weren't in, and so we're kind of watching from a, like she was rooting for San Francisco. I was kind of rooting for Kansas City. Because I have family in Kansas City, and I always worry that if they lose, people will riot and do terrible shit. That's oftentimes how I will root for if I don't weigh their direction on a team, if it's not a home team, I just go, okay, which team will do the most damage if they lose? I hope they win so that they can calm down. That's pretty much it. So, but we watched it. It was good. It wasn't very dull. It was a nail biter. What's up, Boston Brian? How you doing, man? I made you some graphics, by the way, in case you want them. I did. Is that weird? Is that weird that I spend a little time making graphics for Boston Brian? Is that rude? You guys want to? I can show them to you. I think I have them in my folder on here because I was going to send them over later. Let's see. Yeah, because I got to hunt around. I put them in stills and assets. I think so. Let's see. Maybe not. They might still be in my other folder. Yeah. I think I put them in my network drive. It would be stills and assets, yes. And yeah, here you go. So I grab this up. So I made some like see-through. These are like this is Boston Brian made out of pipes. It's kind of cool. Whatever. So I made a couple of variations on it. I made this one. Made this guy. Yeah. Oh, it won't open because it's whatever. So yeah, this dude right here, and it's these are PNGs, so you can see through them. So I'll show you. So you can use them as a label on stuff. So here, grab this, throw it on here. See that? So I made him see through. So so that he could do this on, he could come over on the, when he's on the show, I could use these for him. But also if he wants them, I just thought I'd give them to him because it was cool. Anyways, so there you go. Yeah, that is local pipe fitter, local 2000, right? So there you go. Well, like the background see-through is what I meant, or whatever. But there you go. So, Boss Brian, hey, thanks, Boss Brian. You like them? Oh, good. Well, I'll send them over to you today. I made a bunch of stuff for you, and yeah, he's a plumber. So I was like, I was thinking in that kind of theme, like he can roto-root the news. You know what I mean? He can clear that shit out. We need that. I would argue. Oh dear God. Cancel blind. What a disaster. I had a massive liquid spill on my computer office space 10 minutes before the show. Took all the time to clean up, reassemble, boot up. Give me a minute. I get the system at 100%. We had a similar moment, CSL. So welcome. Glad you could be here. How about some animated emotes? That's a great idea. I will work on that. I'll do what I can. Yeah. So where were we? Back to chat. I'll get my show together. It's a Monday. We're rolling easy on this one, okay? Cut me some slack. because it was he needs toilet emojis. I don't think he does, quite frankly. I think he needs to get away from that job as fast as he possibly can. We can set him on a path to being self-sufficient as a valuable political insider. I'm just saying. Because unlike the rest of us plebes, he's actually got a skill he can fall back on. If I stop being if I stop being entertaining, I'm screwed. There we go. And what was that? Oh, yes. And I need to open up my room so that when we have our lovely Tara Dublin joins us later on, I can bring her in on that particular thing and turn on my virtual webcam and then start that and then done. And then here we go. Excellent. All right. Now I'm kind of up and running. Now we're kind of cool. Now we're back to where we need. We get to the kind of generalized awful. First of all, I would like to say, and this is kind of still in fuck the New York Times thing, but Israel freed 2 hostages. It's very interesting to me that they're like, Israel rescued 2 hostages. Gazan officials say dozens of Palestinians are killed. Doesn't say that the Israelis killed them. Do you notice how the assumption is always... There was a story yesterday about this, it's over the last couple of days, but this, little girl who was, scared because this tank was coming towards her, and then she died and because a rocket fell on the area where she was. Nobody seems to, mention that first of all, that maybe people don't make the distinction between rockets and bombs anyways, but that the Israelis at this point are not bombing areas that their troops are near. So if there's somebody near you, if there's a tank nearby, they're not bombing the area at that time. Secondarily, the rockets are Hamas. So every time they talk about a rocket killing someone, that's people tend to just kind of explosion. It came from the Israeli side. No, if they're saying rocket, that means one of the Gaza rockets were up and came back down and killed somebody. The Israelis are not firing rockets into Gaza. They're not. And it's weird that people don't make that distinction because they're telling the truth. They're lying by telling the truth. A rocket hit this. They're not bombing the refugee centers. They are not, Kimchi. They're not bombing the refugee centers. They're bombing the former refugee centers that they moved people out of because they found tunnels underneath them. I'll see if they find this. Yeah, it doesn't. It's right in Rafa. Okay, the strikes again. It's interesting how they say strikes in Rafa and the people are killed, but it doesn't. But I'll show you this part of it. This is the distinction. It's very important. Yes, Israel is dropping bombs, but they're targeted. Also, the idea that they're doing dumb bombs is kind of ridiculous because on the one hand, all bombs are dumb. There's no such thing as a smart bomb in that regard. It's a guided missile. At that point, it's just dropped. But people don't make the distinction. Again, these are whatever. They're bombing the orphanages and nunnery. Yeah. Israel Special Forces raided a building in southern Gaza in Rafa early Monday to free 2 hostages. The military said as Israel launched a wave of attacks overnight that killed dozens of Palestinians in Rafa, according to the Gazan Health Ministry. Okay, first of all, according to the Gazan Health Ministry. So you might as well say according to Russia, as far as the validity of those numbers. The second thing is there were dozens of Hamas fighters guarding the hostages. What do you think they freed the hostages from an empty building? That's just so weird. Not a single mention of Hamas militants except for the held by Hamas part. There's no question they freed 2 hostages. Let's be abundant. What do we know is actually true of this whole thing? What we actually know is there were 2 hostages. They're no longer hostages. They're now free. According to this, though, they were being held by Hamas, but nobody around them was Hamas. You see what I mean? See where that's weird? Does that strike anybody as odd? Okay. Love you, chat room. And I'm happy to, I'm happy to have these conversations. So I think it's important. War profits for war profits. Again, do I believe Israel? I believe that these Hamas guys, these I mean, it's undeniable, Dragon's Marine, that these people were hostage and they are free, right? We're good on that. We talk about the other stuff later. We're good. Do you at least believe that these are actual hostages? Yes, controversy is not content. Agreed. That's why Hamas doesn't wear uniforms. Can't claim they can claim they're civilian casualties. Yes, yeah. Hamas are technically Palestinians, right? Spin, huh? Well, that's how they spin it. But that's the interesting thing about how they address it. According to this story in the New York Times, these two hostages were held by Hamas, but no one around them were Hamas. Those babies were definitely Hamas? You mean the ones that the Hamas rockets fell on? Agreed. The operations met with elation in Israel and grief and foreboding in the Gaza Strip, where more than 1 million Palestinians are crowded into Rafa. Again, we're most crowded place in the world. Even more crowded in areas like Rafa. There's 1 million people in there. How do you have, if you're indiscriminately bombing, as people say, if they're just, if they're randomly bombing and they're opening fire and they're just shooting people and they're aiming and they want to kill children and people and that's what the goal of the Israelis is, how is there less than 250,000 dead then? How do you indiscriminately bomb an area with more than 1 million people in it, the size of, like, I don't know, what's a comparable area? Downtown Toledo? Smaller than that. And only hit 12 people if you're trying to murder everyone. If you're trying to, if you're genociding the area, if you're trying to wipe everybody out, how do you do that? Explain that to me, anybody. Anybody? Because every description of it sounds like blood libel to me. Yeah, shout out to Southside Toledo. Not Toledo, I'm busy today. They're really tiny bombs. Start out logic is such an emotional defense. I agree. Yeah. The operations room of the elation, and again, elation in Israel and grief and foreboding in the Gaza Strip, where more than 1 million Palestinians have crowded into Rafa, fleeing their homes and seeking refuge from Israeli military actions farther north. Palestinians feared the raid and the accompanying death toll, pretended a more prolonged Israeli operation to capture Rafa. Okay, let's dissect that little piece right there. Let's just break down a piece of news and its description in this regard. Palestinians feared the raid and the accompanying death toll, which was, as far as I can tell, less than 24 people. I don't know who else they captured, but there were less than 24 dead in this operation that rescued 2 hostages. People who'd been held hostage since October 7th, who had watched their fellow hostages be raped and killed. They've been in this place for however long, 125 days, 127 days, however long it's been going on. These people have been hostages all during that time. Those people, these actual human beings, just so you know. Okay. Palestinians feared the raid and the accompanying death toll. Again, 1 million people packed into Rafah, 24 people directly around these 2 hostages are killed. Less than that, but around that number. I think it was like 22 ultimately. Maybe some more captured, but I haven't heard the news on that particular part. Okay. And pretended a more prolonged Israeli operation to capture Rafah. Okay. Are there any more hostages in Rafah? And how the fuck did they get down there? How long have these people, these hostages, been in Rafah? If they started in Gaza or up in the hospital up north, how'd they get there? Were they transported overland or underland in the tunnels? Have they been there the whole time? Right. So the reason people are nervous, and the reason this kind of makes me a little nuts in their description of this, is the reason that people, the Palestinians who might not be aligned or aren't aligned with Hamas, both groups, are specifically, those people are nervous because holy shit, Hamas and Islamic Jihad, who also have hostages, are moving them with the refugees. That seems to be what is happening. That seems to be, the United States government doesn't agree with this move. Hal, why are you defending it? Okay, first of all, no, the U.S., it's not the U.S. does not agree with getting hostages back who are being held by Hamas in that area. They don't believe in a giant mobilization, Rafa. One that has not happened yet, by the way, Kelly, which is important. They have not done this. They haven't rolled in and pushed everybody from Rafa into Egypt, which is the fear. That's what they're concerned about, and reasonably so. That's not the part I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that one of the reasons why the Palestinians feared the raid and the accompanying death toll, which again was incredibly small considering the fact that they were taking 2 hostages back who were being held by Hamas fighters, who, by the way, according to this article, don't exist. Everybody killed was a civilian. There were no, again, at a certain point, you could argue there's a death libel being put on the Palestinians by the New York Times. That if you do not say, okay, there are Hamas fighters and then there are Palestinians, and that the hostages were being guarded by Hamas fighters or Hamas sympathizers or whatever, then essentially you're saying they're just being guarded by Palestinians. Therefore, Palestinians and Hamas, there is no difference. Right? At a certain point, if you're using A-B logic, then B-A logic works as well. That's why the distinction is important. That's why when you say, 24, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, 24 Palestinians were killed, and you're like, yeah, the ones guarding the hostages. So are they Hamas or not? If they're not, then what you're saying is all Palestinians are Hamas or Hamas sympathizers. They might as well be called Hamasians at this point as opposed to Palestinians. And then it's fucking dumb. It's terrible. And it's a terrible thing to do to the people of Hamas. To the Palestinians. Look, I even did it. To the Palestinians who are not sympathizers with Hamas, because it's aligning them with the terrible acts of Hamas and going, well, there's really no difference. And even if there was, there shouldn't be. If they're not being guarded by Hamas, then they're not hostages. Right. They're just staying there of their own free will, starving themselves. They just stayed in the apartment, beating themselves, putting cigarettes out on themselves. Yeah, that's what they did while they were there. How do you know most Palestinians are not Hamas? Well, that is indeed part of the issue. That is, and maybe that's what the New York Times is saying. Maybe they're saying it's a distinction without a difference. I don't think so. I've heard at least a few recordings of Palestinians who think Hamas are terrible and all this stuff. And you could look at the entire West Bank. You can argue that as troubled as the West Bank is, and then when they have to deal with the settlers, and I think that the Biden administration's sanctions on settlers is a brilliant move. And House Party is making much of this up. Wes, what am I making up? What single detail am I making up? That the fact that these 2 guys were hostages, that they were rescued? Are you arguing, Wes, that the Palestinians that were guarding these people or holding them at gunpoint are not Hamas? They are just generally Palestinians, and therefore generally Palestinians are generally Hamas. And so what's the difference? If you're at war with Hamas, you're at war with the entire civilian population? Good Lord. I'm arguing against the idea of human shields. And I'm saying that the New York Times in this article and a lot of how they write about this is creating human shields in their discussion. They are dead. We have no idea of their affiliation. Are you what? Of course you do. They were the ones guarding the actual hostages. Okay. At this point, it's hard to even grasp. Yeah. Again, here, that's pretty horrifying. There's their dead bodies. All adults, by the way. Palestinians in Rafa described a night of fear as Israeli strikes pummeled the area early morning, killing and wounding dozens, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, and highlighting the cost of Israel's military operation to free its hostages. Again, I swear to God, it was an indescribable night. said Gad Elkar, 37, who was among more than 1 million people sheltered in southern Gaza. The bombing was everywhere. We were convinced that the Israeli army was invading Rafa. They weren't. They didn't. Look at how much of this is about people's description of how they felt that, oh my God, they're going to destroy us all. That's not at all what happened. These guys. Okay, here's the two hostages, by the way. Israeli forces said early Monday they'd freed 2 hostages who were being held in southern Gaza city of Rafa, and only the second known of its kind in Gaza since the start of the war. Officials in Gaza said the accompanying Israel strikes had killed dozens of Palestinians in the city overnight. The hostages, again, they tack this on to every paragraph about the hostages. Officials in Gaza said the accompanying Israeli strikes had killed dozens of Palestinians in the city overnight. The hostages, Fernando Simon Marman and Luis Har, 70, were undergoing tests at a hospital near Tel Aviv and were both in good condition, according to the joint statement for the Israeli military, the police, and domestic security agency Shin Bet. The Israeli analysts say the invasion of Rafah is not imminent. Here's why. Now, this is what I'm getting to. Look at the entirety of this whole story. This is by the time we get down to this. So we've talked. This is the story in the New York Times. This is how the New York Times is addressing this. This is all the way down here. Okay, Middle East crisis. Israel rescues 2. Gazan officials say dozens of Palestinians killed. Doesn't make a distinction between Hamas and Palestinians, so they're making the case that there is no difference, I guess. But then they wait this far down in the story to get to this part. Israeli analysts say an invasion of Rafah is not imminent. Here's why. While the people of that area are scared and completely reasonably frightened, oh my God, bombs are falling all around them. Of course you would be afraid. But just because you are afraid of something doesn't mean it's actually happening. And reporting it, 2,000-pound bombs aren't selective. They must be, Peter. Because there are fewer individuals dead than there have been bombs dropped. 1.5 million forced into a small area. Yeah. Again, if you force 1.5 million people into a small area and your goal is to kill them, why are you not indiscriminately bombing that small area? Why are you forcing them into another area and then bombing the buildings where they were? Not the buildings or the sites where they are. Hamas are fascists, they lie all the time. Yes. They also use their people as human shields, and the New York Times is aiding and abetting that, is my point. Hamas is making the point that that there is no distinction between Hamas and Palestinians. And the New York Times agrees. If a Palestinian who was carrying a rocket launcher and is a military-aged male firing at a tank gets shot, according to Hamas, it's a civilian death. And the New York Times agrees. Again, I don't... the point isn't to get you to not care about the violence or to not care about the war or to not or just kind of write it off. The point is to make you think critically about it. And there is no situation in the entire world where anybody would put forth a strategy of genocide or, quote, indiscriminate bombing in an area that densely populated and have fewer deaths than actual bombs dropped. And this is, again, trusting Hamas's numbers. There have been 29,000 to 32,000 bombs dropped on Gaza during this time. There are less than 26,000 dead in total, according to Hamas. If you were indiscriminately bombing, there is no way you would have less than 250,000 dead at this point. There's just no way. That's my issue with this reporting. And again, this isn't even about now. This isn't even about just this story. This is about how you read stories. This is about how you understand information coming into your news feed or into your brain at that point. turn Gaza into a re-education camp? Well, you can argue that UNRWA did, sadly, over time, and that's why the UN, Council on Refugees should take over, and UNRWA should just be like put out of business, and they should the same organization that handles refugees all over the world should handle this as well. They are more trustworthy. They don't have a dog in the fight. They don't hire fighters on the ground as for logistical reasons. That like they can handle it. If they can handle it in Darfur and they can handle it in Chad and the Congo and fucking the shores of Turkey, then they can handle it here. Okay. So I think the interesting part of it is that the one of the reasons the Palestinians are nervous, one of the reasons why the Palestinians clearly are afraid because of the discovery of these two, the recapturing of these two hostages, them getting them back. One of the biggest reasons why they're scared is because you would be too. You're like, oh, motherfucker, these assholes are hiding hostages under our feet. Are there tunnels below me? Are there tunnels underneath the ground I'm standing? Am I going to have to move again because these motherfuckers dug holes and put tunnels underneath every safe spot in the country to use my ass as a shield? That's why the Palestinians in Rafa are afraid right now. That's why they think the destruction of Rafa is coming, because they're looking at them blowing up the tunnels in the northern part of the Gaza Strip now that are enormous, that go on for miles, and they're like, terrific. We get all of our shit down here. We're kind of getting, the aid is coming in. We're getting some level of stability. And we find out they've got two hostages in a building nearby. They're going to shuffle us back around again. That's why they're afraid, and reasonably so, because Hamas has used United States and European aid dollars to dig tunnels and put in electricity and water and toilets and internet and all that shit for the Hamas guys, while gutting the power above them and not caring about what happens, and knowing that they'll just hide behind everybody who's up on the surface. Yeah. So other than that, I have no opinion. Now let's hostages, right? All right, this is interesting. It's Somalia all over again. There's a lot of similarities to Somalia, absolutely. I mean, right now we'll get into that later. There's a bunch of hold on, let me bring the chat back up. There are beliefs that some of the hostages may have even been moved out of the country. I personally don't think so, but that was one of the things. Like, have they used the tunnels to get them into Egypt, and are they holding them there? And is the Egyptian government nervous about that? I mean, you would be, that kind of thing. That the belief is that maybe Yahweh Sinwar is already bugged out, because that's what the Rafa tunnels were for him. So, anyways, hit that like and subscribe, and because what I'm saying is, I get specifically because I'm irritating this morning. Apparently, how many more hostages are still alive? There's no way of knowing. Garland has some explaining to do. Agreed. Because of Her's paper. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Wanted to see if I can find the because one of the biggest yeah, here it is. Yeah, this is the other piece of news that came out. Let's see if I can find the. Go back here. I'm gonna find the Yeah, I watched the video of this morning as well, like the stuff on this one. Hold on. Is that Hamas had a command tunnel under the UN Gaza HQ. And I love how they put it like UN Gaza HQ. It was under the UNRWA building. It wasn't just under like the UN Gaza thing. It's just a curious turn of phrase. But the hello, my door just opened. That was weird. Is there a ghost or a cat? I don't know. All right. Yeah. So Israeli forces have discovered a tunnel network hundreds of meters long and running partly under UNRWA's Gaza headquarters. It connects two of the buildings there, for the record. The military says, calling it new evidence of Hamas exploitation of the main relief agency for Palestinians. Army engineers took reporters for foreign news outlets through the passages at a time of crisis for UNRWA, which has launched an internal probe, seeing a string of donor countries freeze them. That was the United States did that as well. I don't know where there should be images on this one. Use a camera to inspect what the military described as a command tunnel. Okay, that they sent that part down there. Yeah, this was the thing under. Yeah, this is where they are. This is the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza. This is where they were. Let's see if they have. Yeah, this is the barbershop. They have a. There's the electrical and internet stuff. Yeah, here's the. So see this tunnel entrance. After they bombed this part of the building, this is where they found a piece of this tunnel. This is the UNRWA school up here, and then it goes through the other buildings. Somebody had a scooter, right? And then let's see if they have the power things here. There was a. I'll see if I can find it. They had an internet and like a battery system set up underneath the space so that they could store energy from the UNRWA buildings upstairs and use it in case the power was shut off or after hours. And the interesting thing is that any electrician can look at the power draw of that building and know something's wonky. You know what I mean? If like you looked at your on your house, if your neighbor, Kimchi, why should we believe Israel? You don't have to necessarily. You can just look at what you're seeing. I mean, I guess the question is, why would you believe Hamas at all? Either. Because again, there was a ceasefire, who broke the ceasefire? There have been two ceasefires, who broke both of them? I'm serious. There had been according to the Israelis and Hamas had a ceasefire since 2018. Who broke it? On October 7th. That was when it broke. It had been, one of the reasons why October 7th is a big deal is because up until that point, there had been rockets and that kind of stuff, but mainly the Iron Dome had knocked them down, and that was that. There were border skirmishes between them, but it wasn't any, they were effectively settling down. Yeah. Tara will be here. She'll be waiting in the wings, I think. Hold on one second. That's a good thing. It's 10:01. Is she there? I don't see her yet, but I'm waiting. Yeah. Usually I have it turned on so I can hear her when she comes in. But she'll be with us in just a moment. Tara Dublin Rocks will be joining us. Yeah. I gotta go, but you're right on. Thank you, henchman. Absolutely. No TV lawyer for AG. So again, there is no question that there are. That you don't have to believe Israel to know that there were 12 people who were involved in October 7th who were working for UNRWA. That's not that surprising. They hire a ton of Palestinians. If you were Hamas, you would infiltrate the organization and bleed off them as well. You would live like a tick off of those groups. And there's Tara in the background. I'll bring her in just one second. The other thing is that's not even UNRWA's fault in that regard. They would just generally be part of, that's what you would do. That's what terrorist organizations do. For fuck's sake, Al Capone ran orphanages. Does that mean that the people working at the orphanage or the kids that grew up in the orphanage should be written off as members of the mob? No, of course not. Does that mean he gets to go free because he ran these things as cover? Of course not. That's what I'm saying. So there you go. And hold on one second. I'm going to bring in Tara if I can. I've got to Let's see. That's Texas Paul's link. Hold on. I'll get this in 1 second and be able to bring her in on this one. And I hear in the background, give me 1 second, cutting and pasting. It's the one strange thing about this method. Boink. There we go. And 3, 2, 1. There she is. Ladies and gentlemen, Tara Dublin, rocking as always. 89, 87. Is this a...
I made that myself yesterday. It's actually a 1987.
Yeah.
That's when I graduated. I graduated high school in 1987.
Right on.
So I already had this.
Yeah.
I had this. And yesterday, so one of my best friends in the whole world has been a lifelong Kansas City Chiefs fan. And so
all right.
I watched the whole game with her yesterday, my friend Jenny and her boyfriend Ben, in a bar. And right before I left, I was like, I wish I had like something. And I was like, ding. And so I made an 8 because, Taylor Swift, born in 1989,
Sure.
Travis Kelce is number 87. And
Yep.
the Swiftie over 50 was totally rooting for the Chiefs the whole time.
Right.
Mainly because it made my friend Jenny happy.
You're
and
right.
I would have done that anyway, right? I would have gone to the bar and I would have gone to root with Jenny, regardless of whether or not Taylor Swift was involved or the deep state psyop from the Democrats was happening.
Sure.
I would still go.
Yeah.
I just had the added bonus interest of watching Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce make out when it was over.
Yes, that's true. There was a lot of perving going on. I noticed online about.
Is there something wrong with my picture? Because I seem like I'm moving in like slow-mo.
You are a little bit jagged, but
am I laggy?
You're a little laggy, but that's okay. That's Portland. Obviously, it is. You're broadcasting from a bombed out crater.
Oh, I guess it's that then.
Yes,
but I hope it's not bothering.
It'll even out. No, it'll be all right. We'll get there.
Okay,
Fear not. So
anyway, go Chiefs. How about those Chiefs? What you say.
Indeed.
You don't say them. You say those. You say those Chiefs.
I see.
And they're actually located in Missouri, not Kansas. Donald Trump, you dumb fuck. It's fine.
Right. Yeah, but
geography
obviously
doesn't matter. We'll just change where the states are.
Right. Well, they are the Kansas City Chiefs, and Kansas City is like, it's very odd because as a place, it's like 80-20 Kansas. It like the city itself, like the majority of the city, the stuff that you would actually, do and enjoy is technically on the Kansas side of the city, even though the border's downtown. It's on the east side of the city. It's super odd. I've spent far more time there than I ever thought I would, and it's very nice. I mean, I have to say, the museum and the aquarium and the Lego land that's downtown, very good, very lovely.
I'm sure they have proper barbecue as well.
They do, although they're more sweet barbecue, and I like more spicy barbecue. So that's always the issue. You know what I mean?
Barbecue.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, again, it's kind of like pizza and sex. It's even when it's bad, it's good.
I'll go with the pizza. I don't know about the other thing anymore.
All right, yeah, I see.
I don't care. I care way more about pizza.
Well, I don't, and you know what? To be fair, I don't know anything about bad sex. So, I
women do. You want to hear my story? I told Saturday night we had our Low Bar Corral Valentine's show, which is all Elton John songs.
Oh, nice.
And it was so much fun, and we packed into Mississippi Studios here in Portland, and it was so we totally did Tiny Dancer, and it was beautiful. And we did a lot. We did some deep cuts. We did Madman Across the Water, and we did Border Song, and
nice.
And take Me to the Pilot. Da-na-na-na-na-na. We did that one, and we did Leave On. We did all kinds of goodness. But I also performed a story on stage about how terrible dating is in Portland. So that was all part of it as well. And so that was super fun, just reflecting on the 5 years since a man has touched me. It's fine. It's all fine.
Sure.
It's okay. I'm just saying that pizza is just easier for me to get.
That's
far more enjoyable because I can get that. In fact,
I don't know. I don't know. I think I stand by our chat room in that you're so adorable. You could have sex at your door in 30 minutes or less if you chose it.
But I don't want it.
You're much more selective. Yeah, you're more selective about sex than your pizza, which you should be, and I understand that. But I'm just saying, it's definitely.
My story that I told Saturday night it's a dating questionnaire that I have put together as a screening mechanism to just not expend too much energy. Like, if you think you want to go on a date with somebody, before you even make any effort to get yourself together and leave your apartment, I created a questionnaire based on the horrific dating experiences I've had, just as a screening mechanism. So that way, if I decide I'm going to try to date somebody, which I'm probably not going to do, but they're mostly experiences gathered from my 40s, aka the optimistic years. And so, but there's like questions that begin sort of generally, like, do you have an avoidant attachment style? Are you a musician? Are you a chef? Are you a musician and a chef? And then it gets a little bit more specific to my own experiences, including.
Wait, am I? Hold on.
Spouse
what? I'm both of those things. Am I supposed to be the one concerned, or am I? Should I not leave the house, or am I the one on the receiving end of this list?
You don't need to worry about any of this.
I see.
But like, you know, can I catch and die from any diseases you might have? And then it gets a little more specific to my own experiences, like, did your spouse die within the last month, or have you recently been in a coma? Have you created a religion from worshiping Anne Frank, and do you wear her picture in a locket around your neck, even though you're a grown-ass non-Jewish man? And then, do you believe Hillary Clinton is a murderer who killed a man named Benghazi? That's real. That really happened to me. So, you know, and that got a big laugh from the crowd.
Sure. Yeah.
And then what was perfect about that is that right before, so I do my story, which led into the song, Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me. And I was like, and that's why no one goes down on me, because Portland. But, it was a big hit. I was a big hit. And
I don't doubt it.
If anybody out there happens to live in the area of Salem, Oregon, I don't know why you would, but we're going to be taking this Valentine's show to a theater in Salem on the 29th of this month.
Very nice.
First time, Salem. I haven't been in Salem in, I don't know, almost 20 years. There's no reason to go to Salem unless you need to go to the capital.
Right.
I guess. But there's a theater there that has invited the Low Bar Corral. So we're going to be there on the 29th if you want to go. I'm just saying.
Spectacular.
And Hal, I don't know if you got the photo, but it's our 7-year anniversary.
Yes, I know. From Helium.
Anniversary of meeting. I know.
Oh, I have to.
And it's adorable. If you can put it up, because
I will. Hold on 1 second.
You have my hair and I have your hair. Like, I have short hair and you have long hair, but in that photo you have short hair and I have long hair.
That's right.
Because it was 7 years ago. It was 7 years ago, and it was such a fun night. And you're just so kind and generous, and put me on the guest list because I had even less money than I have now. So
hold on, see if I can put this in here. There you go. I'll see if I can stretch
this out.
Look
how cute we are. Look how cute that is.
And
That's
you're
so
not
cute
Texas
too.
Paul, so hold on. There you go. Ink. There you go. I'll see if I can.
Look how cutie patootie.
Yes, look at that. Hold on.
I think that was just
Yay.
adorable.
Yep.
Yay. It just makes our Monday even more meaningful today.
That's right. Yay. Ladies and gentlemen, she does indeed rock. Oh, all right. An ad blocker. Great. That's terrific. All right. Oh, by the way, so
Who's
let's.
that fucker?
Yeah, right. That is Donald Trump, king of misery right now.
Adjudicated sundowning rapist?
Yeah. Right. Who is a
sundowning rapist, right?
Yeah, that's him.
You sundowning adjudicated rapist. Maybe say it like that. Sundowning adjudicated rapist still facing 91 criminal and civil charges. But Joe Biden
I feel like once adjudicated, always adjudicated. Therefore, you don't even need to say adjudicated. It kind of goes without.
Remind everyone that a jury decided. The jury decided that, and also a jury of mostly men awarded E. Jean Carroll $83.3 million.
Right.
He's an adjudicated rapist. He has a record. He was arrested 4 times last year. He is a prisoner number. He has a court calendar longer than one of his stupid red ties. And guess what? He's 77 years old. He's only 4 years younger than Joe Biden. Maureen Dowd. Fuck you, Maureen Dowd. Did you read her shit?
No.
Okay. So I heard you earlier complaining about the New York Times, and rightly so.
Yeah.
So Maureen Dowd over the weekend wrote an opinion piece for the New York Times talking about Joe Biden's age,
Right.
and that many Americans are worried about his crepuscular mien. What are we worried about? She is 72 years old, may I remind you. So she's a young and spry 72, which gives her, I guess, full carte blanche to be ageist. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm not concerned about Joe Biden's
Not
age.
at all.
I'm concerned about the MSM's obsession with Joe Biden's age,
Right.
and how absolutely disrespectful they are to him, and the way the White House press treats him, and
Yeah.
the open hostility and disrespect for him. Oh, is he 81? Yeah, but he's all there. Did he stand up in front of a rally and talk about marbles? I don't think so.
Right.
Did you see that?
Oh, well,
he's
it's interesting that, again, Donald Trump has this propensity as a lifelong fuck up to always ruin any ground he may gain. Like he was born on third base, thought he hit a triple. Like that's part of his life. We know this. He was born with a silver spoon up his ass and pretends, he's a cup of coffee that everybody wants. I don't know. That analogy is horrifying. But the point is, he always thinks that he occasionally gains ground like this. There'll be this like rip that people will get on like this article. And by the way, when she got the assignment to write the Jesus Christ, Joe Biden's old thing last Tuesday or whenever it was, when they were like, put this out for the weekend or we'll pick this up, or give me 3,000 words on how he's too old to do the job. During that amount of time, Donald Trump comes out. First of all, the Tucker Carlson interview with Putin just shits the bed. And then Donald Trump comes out and says, not only would I not protect a NATO country, but I would instruct Russia to do their worst, to attack you as hard as they can, in an attempt to sound macho to his dipshit fan base. And honest to God, all of that conversation about Joe Biden's too old, that by him screwing up the word Egypt and Mexico, that when he was talking about some other stuff, because he was like looking at his notes and he said Egypt instead of Mexico, got all the other details right, but just swap those around. And again, we know that if he was confronted with that mistake, he'd go, did I? Shit. Like we all do, like a normal human being. Whereas Donald Trump would go, no, actually, it is Mexico. No, Mexico is going to send people into Rafa. Like, it's fucking dumb. But that he had that was they used that. That was all over the Five. It was all over like these different websites are grabbing that moment and trying to run with it. And then he comes in and just steps on his own dick by effectively saying, I would let Russia destroy NATO countries if they're not paid up in that regard. And again, NATO countries, all of them, during a war in Europe, would commit the entirety of their military to a NATO war and stuff. That's why everybody gives 2% to their NATO readiness, but that's the combined forces aspect. The reality is that all these motherfuckers wouldn't need any training at all to immediately go, oh shit, where are we going? Poland? We're going to Poland. Or they're attacking Finland? We're sending shit to Finland. We're sending fighters. Everybody will fall under that. Well, we've got our own operations. It'd be like 15 football teams fighting a little league team, just automatically pushing in one direction. So the idea that somehow they're not committed, and the 2% is not a fee. Exactly, Jessica in our chat room says that. The idea that and I would argue all of their military spending is effectively NATO spending because of that automatic commitment, because they're right fucking there. So again, he stepped on it. He stepped on ageism. Right.
Why does anyone think he is fit to lead anyone anywhere? And we talk about this every week, but the normalization of his mere existence and the fact that he's still allowed to run for any public office in this country, let alone the highest, is abhorrent to me.
Right.
He, again, arrested 4 times last year, adjudicated rapist, going to be sitting in or avoiding a courtroom for whatever's the rest of his miserable life, whatever's left of it. He should not be allowed to run for public office. He can spout off all of his all caps Nazi Adolf Hitler bullshit on Truth Social that he wants. Right. He should not be allowed to run for public office when he is dealing with what he's dealing with. And the fact that nobody talks about it is the other thing that I'm so frustrated with. If you have a problem with Joe Biden being 81, you need to have a bigger problem with Donald Trump being 77 and still getting away with this shit.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
I mean,
I think you should be able to run for president no matter what your circumstance, if you're capable of doing it. The only thing that I think disqualifies him is that he previously took an oath and he broke it. That's what the clause in the 14th is about. That's what it means. That's the essence of it. You took an oath and you broke it. Therefore, you cannot be trusted to take the oath again. That's what that's about. It's not about who can run. Again, I've said this before, but I don't know why it isn't breaking through. But if Donald Trump had done January 6th in 2017 instead of 2021, he clearly would have been allowed legally to run again because he'd never taken the oath before. They are making the case in court that he is an officer above the Constitution and above the government because he's the commander in chief. Which they always say we should run like a CEO. Well, the CEO is a chief executive officer, so whatever the fuck.
Can't run the country like a business.
Right, but which is dumb.
Especially when you've bankrupted 2 casinos.
Yeah, exactly.
How anyone handed him the keys. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Well, again, that's on us. We allowed this kind of like backstabby lefty bullshit to happen because it was 75,000 voters from our side of the aisle in 3 different states that handed him the Electoral College in 2016 because they were all.
And we just need to abolish the Electoral College at this point, and I can't believe we're still dealing with it. How antiquated and racist and bullshit it is.
I agree, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. I agree,
and it should though, because if the argument is that the people elect the president, but you ignore the popular vote, then the people don't elect the president. So.
Well, but that's the end of it.
Do we have a lane here in the modern times?
Well, that's exactly it. We're gonna as what you're seeing, and I think that the electronic voting aspect of things, and the ability to count votes everywhere, and the ability for everyone to vote, every citizen of the United States to vote, who is over the age of 18 and is not currently serving time as a felon or has been let out early. And it hasn't finished their sentence. All those folks aside, everybody who's eligible to actually vote, the biggest fear the Republicans have is that all those people will vote, that they actually will engage. Because what you'll have is the popular vote will grow in enormous size by the collection of places around cities and suburbs. And there's a huge settle the fuck down and leave me alone vote in the suburbs that the Republicans thought they had a grip on, but have lost over time, especially suburban women with their lean towards, fighting abortion rights and the like and controlling women's bodies and having this kind of like rural redneck version of what women's life should be like. That's not real popular. And what their fear is that the new version of the Electoral College will be giant balloons of votes in the cities and in the suburbs around those cities. And as that continues, that's their big fear, because the Republicans, there is a distinction between these two parties, no matter what they say. But Democrats are Democrats because we believe in democracy. We believe in one person, one vote, and that everybody plays a part. Republicans believe in the concept of the Republic. They are the party of the Electoral College. That's their goal. And they'll tiptoe around this. But if you really push them, that's when they all start going, we're not a democracy, we're a republic, and blah, blah, blah. Okay,
for fuck them's sake.
Right.
They're the party of Putin. They're all a bunch of Putin puppets right now. They don't have a problem with Tucker Carlson being over there gargling Putin's taint at all, because they're all gargling his taint in one way or another. And he owns them all because he used Donald Trump as a human bridge to first get a foothold, get the Russian mob a foothold in New York, which he did in what year? This year. They met in this year of 1987. And that's when he was like, you'll be the most useful idiot of my life.
Of all the useful idiots, you're the most useful.
Of all the useful idiots. And the Russians, they like to play the long game. They have infinite patience. And they will lay the groundwork for years, knowing what the end game is. And the end game was to take over the United States, which the way to do that is through Congress. And I will remind everybody that when the Russians hacked the DNC, they also hacked the RNC, but they only.
But you never saw it.
The Democrats,
right?
And they held on to what they found out about the Republicans.
That's right.
Here we are, friends. So maybe we just keep pushing the truth about that narrative. Wouldn't it be great if this one had a job writing the truth about politics and was getting paid to do that instead of Maureen Dowd? Or the people at the Bulwark, instead of fucking Bill Kristol's like, I'm very concerned about Biden's age. I don't give a fuck what you're concerned about, Bill Kristol.
I
I'm
think
not
I got to
concerned.
say, I'm going to put my thumb on this scale, but I have a feeling that if our dearest Tara Dublin Rocks were to send in a letter to the editor, it has a much stronger chance of getting published than she might believe. And I think a
The
response
editor of
about
the
that
New
would be
York
fantastic.
Times.
Yeah,
I'll try that. I will
yeah,
try that.
yeah. I
On my
think,
Substack, so
yeah,
I'll just be like, hey, I wrote this is important to me.
yep,
The truth is the most important thing. I don't care if it's the truth about a Democrat or the truth about a Republican. The truth is what matters, and it is gone. Especially when you lay off thousands and thousands of journalists.
right. Well,
It's a terrifying time to be someone who cares about the truth.
yeah, well, again, we live in, what sells these papers. It's curious to me because there were windows of civility that, even if you look back on them fondly, were far more porous than I think we would like to admit. And one of the interesting things about, All the King's Men, or the story of the Watergate report and the like, was how much pushback not only did they get, and how much they had to thread a needle up to get any space on the front page of the paper, or even in the paper at all, as did many other stories over the years. I mean, if you look at Doubt or Spotlight, or any of the stories about real news stories that were difficult to deal with breaking through, that at those times is exactly the same shit. The big wall of stuff was, local stories that have a lot of personality, bullshit takes on stuff, and of course any flame throwing entertainers or politicians that were big at the time, blathering about some random bullshit that ate up a lot of screen space and a lot of paper space. And it's not all that different now. The difference, I think, now is that there's just so much that to break through, it requires bigger hooks, and those hooks are always going to be emotional. And you could see that in the New York Times reporting about Israel and Gaza right now, that it's fucking razor wire what they're trying to snag anybody's heartstrings that they can, whether it's true or not. They're just trying to break your heart. That's the point. And that's where I think we get that whole, like, people talking about how exhausted they are. Well, part of the reason you're exhausted, I think, is that you're constantly having people hammer on your heart, for their own purposes, to move and sell papers, to move and sell stuff, even if the story doesn't warrant it.
Well,
about the
like
smallest
the dirty
shit.
laundry.
Right. Yeah,
up,
exactly.
Take them when they're down. They can tell you about a plane crash with a gleam in their eye. It's all about, if it bleeds, it leads. It's terrible.
But it's been around for a long time. I don't know that it's all that different. It's just the variety and the availability and the volume of it. And again, you used to have to go. One of the greatest. You've seen the movie Roxanne, I hope. Yes. Okay. So Steve Martin, for those of you who don't know, Steve Martin did 27 drafts of that script. It's based on Cyrano de Bergerac, and he did. He wrote it and rewrote it and wrote it and rewrote it, and he wrote it for Victoria Tennant, who was his sort of muse and later his wife, and then they didn't stay together. And I think the killer in season 1 of Only Murders is loosely based on their relationship in that regard, although it might have been one of his other famous girlfriends later. Mm-hmm. The one that was on Murphy Brown, or not Murphy Brown, on what was the anyways, never mind. Long story short. Yeah, he wrote, she passed away recently. She drove her car into a person's house. She was on drugs a lot. She was
person.
Yes, right, her. Yeah, so
they had a relationship.
Yes, they were dating during Picasso at the Le Panagile, and he gave her a part in it, and she would read his love letters out to the rest of the cast and then laugh at him. She was a very awful person. But that said, names shall not be spoken. But the point is, in that draft of it, he writes one political joke. The one political joke of Steve Martin's entire career is in that movie. And it is a physical gag where he's walking down the street. He takes a quarter out of his pocket. He puts it in, takes out a newspaper, takes a look at it, goes, ah! Gets another quarter out of his pocket, puts it back in the thing, shuts it, and goes and walks down the street. It is that if I could sum up, yes, Lindsay, you're correct. If I could sum up the sort of the current business model of modern news, that's it. That's the whole thing. Just make you scream from the moment you look at it. Yeah.
The rage clicking that keeps people
yeah.
fortified. We have a 24-hour news cycle. Anytime they're awake, people can find whatever they need to
however,
make them even more anxious.
Yeah, since you watched the game yesterday, it was a very interesting thing this morning. I got I subscribe to so many fucking news update things because this, of course,
we have to. Yeah.
And so sometimes I like stuff pops up on my feed like as an alert that are very odd. And one of them was, interestingly enough, that Snap's stock went up like 20%, some ginormous, like, or 8%, some ginormous leap for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a bunch of Snapchat commercials on.
That's right. Yesterday during the Super Bowl, they bought a Snapchat ad. And what was their whole thing? Less friends, more friends. Like less friends in quotes, more real friends. Less, you know what I mean? Like fewer likes, more love. That kind of stuff. Like they were really pushing this idea of a social network where you really use it to talk to your friends as opposed to a publishing site.
Shit disappears so that.
Right.
Snapchat
well, that
model, like
that was what it originally was. 24 hours.
Do they still do that? I don't have Snapchat, so do they still disappear after a certain time, or now are they always there like TikTok?
I think you can choose.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, there were a lot of Temu
basically
ads.
They're saying our social media is better than other social media, but it's really not because it's all the same. It's all the same.
Well, no. I think that. But there's a lot, like TikTok's got a lot of, like, is eaten up by news and the like, just like Twitter became a news aggregate site. Snapchat has not. And Snapchat's whole thing is we're really about silly faces and being goofy with your friends.
And funny filters.
Right,
and
exactly.
Silly dance. Yeah, no, and it seems like a really youth-driven app, and like both of my kids have it and my nieces all have it.
But that was it was interesting that was their sales pitch yesterday, and it paid off today. That was the most interesting thing about it. Was like, how are people going to react to them trying to rebrand themselves or make more people aware that that's their brand of more direct connection and like silly happy fun on a site versus, if you're going to distinguish yourself from, Snapchat and Snapchat's going to distinguish themselves from like TikTok and Twitter. One of the ways you're going to do that is it's not about like news and being liked and that kind of stuff. It's just about being, silly and connection. And it was great, whether it's true or not, whether that's just their ad campaign, whether that's what they're trying for. The success of it was the fascinating part. The success, the fact that people were like, "Oh, okay, that's actually a good business model. That there's some growth possibly to be had there." So that's
if they're able to stick with it, right?
Right.
And if they're able to maintain it, not let the idiots take over the asylum and change it, like other social media apps.
Yeah, right. Which they will try to do. But Twitter has become largely a shit posting site at this point.
Oh yeah, I'm well aware.
Yes,
the anti-Semitism has just really gotten so egregiously disgusting.
Right.
And I still won't leave because I'm not going to let a Nazi run this Jew out anywhere.
Right.
And I will continue to tag Linda Yaccarino in every disgusting anti-Semitic tweet that I get. And now there's also Brett Weitz, who works for them and is in the content division. And he's already blocked a friend of mine, Nancy Levine, who is Jewish, who's an investigative reporter, for simply asking, all she did was ask him a question. What are you going to do about anti-Semitism on Twitter? And instead of responding, he blocked her. And so he hasn't blocked me yet.
Mm-hmm.
Brett, let's have a discussion, because it matters that they're not doing anything about anti-Semitism on Twitter. It matters a whole lot. And then the other thing that we saw yesterday, and I'm sure since you were watching it, I was watching it, and the people in the bar I was in Portland, Oregon, certainly had a visceral response to the he gets us Jesus
Mm-hmm.
commercials that were all sporadically throughout that, and they spent something like that's, and it's the same people behind Hobby Lobby, all the hateful same people, all the Christians who hate all the same LGBTQ and hate everybody else. They're all behind. They were all behind that those ads, and that they used an In Excess song. That they used "Never Tear Us Apart." It wasn't the In Excess version; it was a
Right.
cover of someone singing "Never Tear Us Apart." But once we realized what the commercial was, the whole bar was like, boo.
Right.
They were just like,
I
no, fuck
I
you.
had a different.
Oh no, not Michael Hutchins.
Right.
So that was some bullshit. Some bullshit that the Hobby Lobby people grifted $50 million from their cult and put up some Jeebus bullshit in the middle of the Super Bowl. You have a captive audience, though. That's why the Snapchat commercial was effective. The Jeebus commercial got people talking, if
Right.
nothing else, right? It got them talking. And that's what, and that's why they put that. And the RFK Jr. commercial, Jesus fucking
Right.
Christ, did you see that one?
Oh yeah,
And
that
he's
one.
like,
And
I'm, and then he has the audacity to tweet, "I'm so sorry about that. If anybody was offended, but my family, they did this without me. This pack did it. I had nothing to do with it."
mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it's his fucking pinned tweet. Don't
Yeah.
apologize, you goddamn MAGA hypocrite. And we all know he's
Right.
MAGA. Stop it. You're not a
Right.
Democrat. Not when your entire incredibly famous Democratic family has disowned you. Everything you say is crap if you can tolerate listening to his drugged out, damaged vocal cords. And shame on you, Cheryl Hines. Shame on you. Because he's fucking crazy. And that gets airtime. That gets airtime. And that gets talked about. But Joe Biden is 81. So, you know.
Right. That's the big concern. Right. I have to say, as many people won't be surprised, I had a different reaction to the "He Gets Us" thing because and the fact that I have a bit about huh? Yeah, specifically. And never mind first of all, I was like, I joked to Summer, I was like, somebody just bought like JesusLikesFeet.com and turned it into a Pornhub search result right after this was over.
I hope so. I really hope so.
But there were two things. One was the same group had done the Love Thy Enemies idea, and as long as they're pushing that overreaching thing, these people are not going to a specific church, they're going to a church, and if that's what's drawing them to it, is whether their intention is to rope-a-dope you into believing the peace and love stuff and then make you a bigot, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. And so the idea that even if they think they have to do this to get people in on this, to bring people back into the fold, and again, it's kind of like the Snapchat thing. Even if the product that they're individually selling is off, the idea that they have to sell it this way is a better sign. It means the people that they're trying to reach know your audience. That's what advertising is all about. The audience is more interested in the peace and love aspect of Jesus Christ than they are about this. What the churches have transformed into over the last 3 fucking decades specifically. So I think it's a net positive that they have to do this. I mean, the fucking Scientologists had an ad as well, and it's interesting that didn't trigger as big a boo. That said,
I mean, it's still not great to see that during the Super Bowl.
So well, yeah, I mean, I don't care. Like anybody can buy it. It's an ad, right? If you're selling a product, if you believe your religion is a product or your ideology is a product, then that's where you're going to go. That said,
and the whole point is, if you're spending $50 million on an ad, you're not a nonprofit. You're absolutely for profit. So again, if you want to be in a cult, that's your business, but you should pay taxes. All churches should be paying taxes.
Well, no, because then
that's my whole thing.
No, if you tax the churches, they get more rights. The one thing that keeps them excluded from places is like when they used to pay taxes, you used to also set them up as voting spaces because they're just like any other building. The fact that they are churches and they don't pay taxes keeps them from being voting spaces. And in a lot of places, they're the only building around, unless you do it at the elementary school. It's what makes the elementary school the place people go instead of inside the church where the pressure would actually happen.
That's where my family voted when I was growing up.
Exactly.
And they actually closed school on election day so everyone could go and vote, which they should still absolutely do.
Yeah, or they use the
So
gym. Most of the time, they'll use the
yeah,
gym or
always in
the
the gym.
auditorium. Right. Yeah.
Yep. My mother used to volunteer.
No, they're
The first time I ever went into a voting booth was when I was in elementary school. My mom always volunteered with the Democrats, and um, I remember her taking me into the voting booth with her and saying, "This is the most important thing we do as citizens. This is the
right.
most important thing we can do. And if you don't vote, then you are squandering an opportunity, and you have no right to complain about your country if you don't vote." And she instilled that in
Right.
me when I was very, very young.
Yep.
And even before I started elementary school, she was doing that. And she kept telling me how important it was, and that your vote is your voice and your voice is your vote. And if you don't exercise your right, like you're just squandering what, people
Right.
died for, our right to do that. Also, my mother, I think, also maybe a little like I am, because as early as like 1977, 78, she was like, someday Joe Biden will be president. She had a huge crush on Joe Biden in the 70s and early
Right.
80s because he was right next to,
Right.
we were in Jersey. He was in Delaware. He's doing a great
It could have
job.
happened. It could
And
happen.
he's going to
Yeah.
be
They
president someday.
yeah.
So,
But the overall idea though is that they could in the South, like in northern country, like northern territories, northern states, having a like either using a church as a facility is less effective than it is in the South. The South has a much more bigger control point, but ultimately they also get more say. If you pay taxes, you have more say in the government. You can, as far as what you can do to effectively directly lobby is not an ideological lobby, it's a material lobby. Then you can raise money. Churches automatically have the tithing aspect of their followers. Unlike everybody else who has a product, you could decide, I don't like this brand of milk, I'll buy this brand of milk. But when you're in a religion, they can take your tithes and they've got an automatic flow of cash. So that's the other reason why you don't want them taxed, because that would give them the ability to become effectively 501c3s that can lobby the government directly, meaning they can give money from the church. This church gives money to a direct candidate. And since they can scoop 10% off of everybody's wealth in the area, that gives them a nest egg that other people can't do. Nobody with a fucking Etsy store could scrape 10% off their neighbors, right?
yeah. Well,
That's the
that's
idea.
just it's just all that's crazy. I just don't want any religious organization having any influence over the way people think or vote. But that's just me. I think all groupthink is dangerous. That's me. So,
Well,
and then
but all right, but it isn't, because for a long time there, and we know this, that there are behaviors you can police physically, which is why we have prisons, and then there are behaviors that socially are policed by people's own moral strength and their own ability, and there are those that only do it because they're afraid of hell and they want to go to heaven. And those folks, when you turn off that spigot, when you turn off when you grow you isolate a population in that thought form, it's a bit of a mess. As somebody who's seen the shift in China from when they had real temples to what they cultivated, it's not a healthy thing. And so there will always be someone fighting for your thoughts, your philosophy, your ethics. The question is, the quality of that fight, quality of who that is. And like I
and
said,
again, I don't have a problem with, if you want to go to church and you have a faith and you want, great. Don't be a fucking hypocrite about it. Who are the
right.
people that troll me the most? People have the word Christian in their bio.
Sure,
And they
sure.
come for me and they drag me and they insult my
Well, that's
looks and they call me crazy cat
right.
lady and they say all kinds of bullshit. Now,
That's
one of the
why.
things that
Yeah, that's why. That's the point I'm making, though. That's why that ad that they aired, the washing feet ad, was was enormous in a lot of ways. That's the tack that Christians are trying to wrest their their religion back from that crowd.
they're not gonna. Not if that crowd keeps behaving the way that they do. They're a bunch of fucking hypocrites. They're okay with a rapist pedophile at the head of their party. They justify all of that. They look the other way when there's stories about abuse
Mm-hmm.
in the church. They look the other way when Republican candidates act in a really Christ-like way or whatever. They all
Mm-hmm.
look the other way because it serves them to look the other way because these are people who keep pushing their messages. So it's the hypocrisy for me.
Sure.
Again.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
like I said, how do
weekend,
you remedy that hypocrisy is my point. How do you, if you truly have those
I don't
beliefs,
know.
how do you,
I don't know if you can do that.
well, I think you have
Most
to.
of the people
You have to try, don't you?
but and that comes back to us telling the truth and being louder than the people who were like that. Because
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, while I was watching the Super Bowl, I had some Jesus freak trolling me and
Mm-hmm.
being anti-Semitic and hateful. And I was like, well, who would Jesus troll, you piece of shit? Where in your Bible does it say, thou shalt troll women online because thou doesn't know the touch of a woman you don't have to inflate first? Where's that? Where is it said that it's okay for you to attack a woman because she's Jewish when Jesus was a Jew? You fucking hypocrite. I'm sorry you don't have anybody to watch the Super Bowl with, but that's not my fault. And that's where it comes. That's where I get angry, because I know that there are people who live their faith and they're not assholes about it. Joe Biden,
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Colbert, Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Carter live their lives quietly in their faith. They don't
Mm-hmm.
start with every sentence. You don't hear Stephen Colbert go, well, as a Catholic, I believe this and you should believe it too. They don't do that. They don't push
Right.
their belief systems on someone else
Agreed.
and then act like a hypocrite about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it comes down to me. You want to go to church every Sunday? Great. You want to give Donald Trump all your money? Fine. Don't be a fucking hypocrite about it, and absolutely don't be an anti-Semite. Don't. Because if you call yourself a Christian and you get mad when I call your Bible bullshit, then live by it. If you're going to quote it, you have to live it. And if you're not going to do that, then shut your fucking mouth. Do
Mm-hmm.
not put Bible quotes as a response to a tweet from me. And then in the same tweet, call me a libturd or say something about Hillary
Sure.
or insult me
Yeah.
about living in Portland or having short hair or having cats. You are not a Christian.
Well, that's the again.
Online.
I find that and of course you're right about those people you're interacting with, but you're also interacting with those people on Shitter, a shit posting site that is built and designed
on other sites too. It's not.
No, I know
Shitter.
that. You know what I'm talking
it's
about.
All social media.
We're talking right. And again, I don't know that for a fact. And I don't think that anybody who's kind of faith is part of their background is interacting with you on it at all. So it is a self-selecting.
I get dragged on TikTok a lot
bias.
too.
Well, TikTok and X are the same thing as far as they're tools of social unravel.
Facebook
TikTok is. I've told you this. I will stand by this. TikTok is malware, and it is designed to socially unravel people. It is designed by ByteDance on behalf of the Chinese government to undermine social cohesion in Western countries. That's what it's for. Its algorithm is designed for it. It is anti-bridge. It is built to be anti-bridge. I would argue that Twitter, when it was formed, wasn't. It was simply a ripoff of Facebook status updates. It was all it was Facebook had status updates.
A microblogging site.
That's right. Well, it didn't even become that until it got to be 104, or 200 plus characters. But the initial purpose is just a ripoff. Twitter was a ripoff of Facebook status updates. Everybody knew it at the time, and that's what the weird part was. Like, who wants to just do that? And the reason it was successful is because they put forward this whole thing of like, Facebook owns your pictures once you post them. And there was this thing where nobody gave a shit about the TOS, so everybody was just posting the shit, not realizing that Facebook could later on, if they wanted to run ads, use your pictures in their ads. That all changed like a week after people became aware of it, because even the people at Facebook weren't that aware that it was a big deal. They're like, oh, people are pissed. They shut it down, and now your TOS doesn't allow for that. But it was enough to give Twitter a leg up. And it's fine. It was great for a while. We had hashtags and we could live tweet shit, and it was super fun. But when Elon Musk took it over, it became a social disruption site. The purpose of the entire site is to blow up bridges, not to build them. And social media is allegedly, at least in concept, a bridge building exercise. And in this particular instance, both of the sites you're primarily talking about are weapons of war. They are meant to create in the viewer and user's mind a view of the world that is intentionally divisive. Now, you can know that going in and battle, and it's like football. You don't play football in a fucking supermarket. You play it at the Super Bowl. You don't walk around in fucking with weapons on yourself and just bashing into people and wearing armor and doing all this stuff. There are theaters of war and places where the fights break out. It is no one else's problem. And there's effectively that, X has become effectively the intellectual space for school shooters as far as a mentality, because the idea is divide and conquer. That's what TikTok is for. It's not. I'm not talking even euphemistically, or I don't like the CCP, so therefore I'm telling you that's specifically what it is designed to do. None of the shit you can see in the West and in the United States is available to TikTok users in China for that specific reason. They built a separate algorithm for the inside of their country than they did for outside the country. That's insanity. And so the idea that I'm going to judge my fellow human beings based on any fucking thing that shows up in my TikTok feed is ridiculous. Never going to do it. Same thing is true of X post Elon's takeover. You might have been able to argue that before he took over the fucking place, that you were getting a hash out of what your average American's ideas were about a particular idea. Now, nonsense. Now you are having all this stuff being shoved to the front of your page so that you think this vision of the world that Elon Musk is fucking spoon feeding you is a window of actual humanity. And it's not. It unequivocally,
it's not in any way.
No. And so the idea that you would form opinions, and this is what I'm getting at, about your fellow human beings who identify as Christians based on how Christians on X operate, or that they have any right to even claim that, is like saying the person I want to hear from when I want to hear about racial issues, for black people in particularly, is Rachel Dolezal, because she says she's black and she talks black and she dresses black and she uses a spray tan enough that she vaguely looks black if you squint. And that means she speaks for black people. That is the exact same thing. That's my argument. It's the same thing. Saying Christians on Twitter are indicative of Christians is like saying Rachel Dolezal is indicative of black people. It's unfair.
I get your point. I absolutely get your point. It doesn't change the fact that that's how they behave. So,
well, no. Yes, it does. Because it changes who the they are. It changes who the they are. Because just because you identify as something doesn't mean you're that thing.
I mean, also I don't believe for a moment that most of America is on Twitter. This is a segment of the population, right, and it's not indicative of all people. Most people I know,
right? But it made you and your entire bar boo an ad about washing feet. It made that was your guttural reaction. Your guttural reaction, and everybody in that bar, I presume you were in Portland, booed an ad that was an attempt by some Christians, whatever attitude you have about them, to go, Jesus wasn't about fighting. He was about washing feet. He was humble and full of humility, and he washed the feet of strangers, which is, in the Middle East especially, is indicative of absolute humbling yourself to a fellow human being. And the idea was that he was the Son of God. He didn't have to do this. And he washed the feet of strangers and hookers and criminals and broken people and the sick. And to run an ad like that, even if they're trying to rope-a-dope us, it doesn't fucking matter. The fact that they have to try and rope-a-dope you actually means that the vast majority of the audience they're reaching, to reach that audience, you have to act that way. That's a good sign.
Well, some people were saying that people who behave in the way that I've been describing, the intention of that ad was to kind of wake them up and remind them, stop acting like a shitbag and start
part of it
acting
is
like a proper Christian.
Right.
So like it was a reminder, a poke at them saying,
it was.
This is what you're supposed to be.
But it's both.
They're not.
That's not. And it's to recognize that the people who've been driven away from Christian churches, especially in the last 2 decades, as the rise of this shit has happened, are the very people who seek that humility, seek that depth of spiritual belief and being, and don't want their religion to be associated with this hateful horse shit from the right,
But
and
it
and
is.
and they've left. They have left. That's why church attendance is down so much, and it's because they left that message behind and they started selling it as politics. And what this ad's saying is like, holy fuck, that was a mistake. That was and if you believe that's the way, it ain't. This is what the
Yeah.
real story was. And again, my issue is that it automatically triggered your entire bar to boo at it.
It's just
That
because
part.
I think the take from my immediate group, the take was I'm not during the Super Bowl. Just
Mhm.
not during the Super Bowl. You can understand why they did it during the Super Bowl because of the large captive audience, but at the same time, it's like, come on now. But again, and there was
Well,
discussion around it,
it's
like
the perfect
Jesus and
sporting of
football and America, and
no,
all
but
that.
it's the perfect football is the perfect audience to direct that at because it's a huge Americana audience. It's a huge, throughout the South and the Midwest, especially fucking Kansas. And then they're fighting the irony that Maga was fighting for San Francisco to win, which is fucking hilarious because they wanted Taylor to
Swift's
lose.
fault.
Right.
Because Taylor Swift. Which
But
again,
I'm telling, like,
completely
that's the
fucking
audience.
stupid.
That's the audience, though. That football player audiences where the soft like CrossFit Christians. Those are the ones that you're trying to reach in that regard. And then the people who've left who are just like, look, I just like my hanging out with family and going to the game and that kind of stuff, and that's what it used to be about. And we don't go anymore because our preacher's a fucking asshole. And to bring that back around, that is the audience. You know what I mean? Like, you think that that's the audience they're going to reach during the fucking Oscars?
No, but I mean, if MAGA people were watching the Super Bowl with the intention of hating on Taylor Swift or being a dick to people online at the same time, and then they saw that commercial, do you think it really made them go, oh, maybe I should stop being a dick? No, they're going to keep being dicks.
Well,
I don't
some
think
of
it's
them
going
are
to change
absolutely
anybody into being a better Christian.
I disagree.
We'll
because
see.
I think
we'll see.
yeah. I think the point is that what your ethics and your ideology are is a tuning fork for a certain level of credibility and cohesion amongst your ideology. That there can be disparate ideas, but there's got to be a base point that we all kind of agree on. And sometimes you got to hit the tuning fork and make sure everybody's in tune with the same note. And they haven't been doing that. And so what's been going on is that it's just been a fucking cluster of noise. And I think this was an attempt, interestingly enough, to hit that tuning fork.
Maybe, and just encourage people to be better human beings, which would be lovely. It would be lovely. And on that note, I would like to ask all of the human beings in the chat to do me a favor.
Sure.
As we are all friends, mostly, right?
Yeah.
There's this book I wrote, The Sound of Settling, which you can get at TaraDublinRocks.com. Now, we are 15 copies away from selling 500.
Nice.
That's a lot, right? That's a lot. So
It's
first,
good.
I would ask, if you haven't bought the book yet, please go to TaraDublinRocks.com. If you can afford it, which I understand if you can't. If you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free. It's also obviously available in a real paperback. But here's the other thing. I've been fighting with Amazon for months to remove the obviously fake 1-star reviews, which they have not done, and I'm going around in circles with them. So if everyone here would please take a moment, if you have an Amazon account, please go to Tara Dublin Rocks, which will redirect you, and just rate it 5 stars, please, because the fake 1-star reviews are bringing down my rating. And all the real reviews are raves. All the real ones are rave reviews, 5 stars. They want the sequel, which I have a draft of the sequel written. They want a streaming series and all of the things. And I have almost 500 sold. And so what I need is good people to do good things for each other, which is always my intention when I start a week with you, Hal, because you're such a good human being for giving me this space. But I really need that help from your
Absolutely.
people. And also, I think either at maybe tomorrow or Wednesday, but I'm not sure, I recorded the Enemies List with Rick Wolfen last week.
Nice.
I got to be on Rick's podcast last week, and we did talk about the book and a whole bunch of other things. But that'll be on this week as well, which I hope gives the book a boost. Because in the climate that we are talking about, where I don't have a job writing about politics, which I should, this is the only other way I know how to boost my visibility. This, my Substack,
Sure.
because there are good people out here who still write the truth and should be paid for it, instead of Maureen Dowd or the
Right.
liars over at the New York Times writing the clickbait, ragey headlines to make you all scared that Joe Biden is 81 when you should be focusing on his amazing record.
Right.
And if everyone here's the other thing, and this is a point I wanted to make earlier that we kind of got around it.
Sure.
The Republicans really shouldn't be pushing Donald Trump, because even if he somehow got back into office, he's not going to do. He could only serve one term. Don't the
Yep.
Republicans want someone who can
Well,
serve two?
yeah, that's one of the big hangups. That's there are a bunch of like
So,
Haley
again,
voters
they're
who
not
are
going to vote for Nikki Haley.
right.
Trump doesn't know where
But
her
that's why
husband is, and that's apparently a
yeah.
problem. But Joe Biden knows where Nikki Haley's husband is. It's fine. Anyway, but I'm so exhausted from all of this bullshit. I just want the truth to get out. That's all that I want.
Well, it is. And that's the other thing I will say.
You need to be demanding that from the MSM, though.
It absolutely
I want to see more people demanding that.
Is again, I will reiterate this, that when Trump had a leg up, a moment where because of a verbal gaffe by Biden, he got a wedge in there that he could have worked with. He shit on it by telling NATO countries that he would allow Russia to attack them. He would tell them to do your worst. And
he's one post away from saying how much he loves. He just blatantly, I support Putin. He's
right.
Steps away from that.
Well, I don't know how he can not. And I think what's increasingly clear is that a lot of his followers are moving. Remember that there was a moment, a mini little sane moment that occurred right after he came out and said, I can't imagine why it would be Russia. That moment when he had that closed door meeting with Putin and everybody's like, he believed.
Never got the translator.
No, we're never going to, because he drove. We didn't have any people in the room. We had the Russian translator in the room. We're never going to get the fucking real version of that.
That's what I'm saying. We're never going to get her.
But there was a group of, at that point, there were a group of Republicans who, for a little while, it's like it woke them up. It was like that tuning fork moment where they were like, wait a second. What'd he say? And that was the biggest drop in his approval that he'd had in a while. That same group is all saying they're going to vote for Nikki Haley or whomever, or possibly Joe Biden, but not Trump. And that's eliminating at least a third of reliable voters from the Republican side, period. And there are not enough maggots to make up for it. And then at the same time, Donald Trump is telling his own maggot supporters, don't vote, it's fixed. Like he's saying only vote on election day, and if that, all of his surrogates are all like, they're going to use it to track you. So half of these assholes are not going to show up even if they want him. So I got to say, the news, as much as they're dicks about Biden's age and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of blowing up in their faces. It really is. And
more now than ever, especially the other day when Robert Hur released the special counsel report, and fuck her. Thank you very much. Biden facts matter. Trying so hard to not exonerate Joe Biden when he had to exonerate Joe Biden.
Yep.
Trying really, because he was a Trump appointee and he's a Trump loyalist, and so
that's right.
And there was it was like not as bad as what
it was. An attempt at a Comey moment. There might be something more to this whole Hillary thing.
You cannot Trumpify Joe Biden. It doesn't work. You need to stop trying it, because it does not work. He's an honest man, a good man who believes in putting country ahead of party, ahead of himself. That's why he's running again. He's not doing it for himself. He's not a selfish, egomaniac. He is doing it for the good of the country. That's why he ran in 2020.
Yep.
Don't you think that Joe Biden would love to be retired and at home with his wife and his grandchildren? Right. Of course he would.
Well, but Trump would too. That's why he says it all the time. I had a nice life. I didn't have to do this.
South of France.
Right.
He'd rather live in the south of France. He said the other day he could be home enjoying a nice Saturday afternoon when it was Friday.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
And just whatever with this.
And it was nighttime. Here's the thing. I get we've all had those moments, especially if you're on the road or something. You're like, is it Friday or Saturday? But you sure as fuck know when it's day or night.
Pandemic, we had no idea what day it was.
Right, it didn't matter.
During the lockdowns, you're like, is it Thursday? Is it Sunday?
So Trump,
who knows?
On our way out the door, because we're at the end of the show, I want to remind everybody to go to TaraDublinRocks.com, pick up her book if you don't have it already. Fire up one of those 5-star ratings if you're the reading kind.
Please. It means so much to me.
And help her punch through the onslaught of cultivated hate that she farms on X every week.
I'm a sweetheart. Who just doesn't want people to die from gun violence, and I want people to vote for good, honest, nice people. But I'm not going to take your shit. I'm a Jersey girl. I am not going to take your shit.
First of all, I totally believe that you are a sweetheart. Not about those subjects, though, and not on X. No, so just for the record. Yeah.
I wrote a rock and roll love story. There's love in this heart. Please.
I know. That's where it's going to be. Right. So, anyways, Trump is apparently in court today again.
Shocking.
For closed-door hearings without prosecutors present to discuss the case in detail, according to court documents. The defense lawyers will argue for access to classified evidence in the case that they or their clients haven't seen yet, and that prosecutors and intelligence agencies seek to keep from them, potentially giving them only summaries of the information because of how sensitive it is, according to the court record. So Trump wants...
Which case is this? Let's remind all the kids, because he's got 91 criminal charges.
This is the Florida case where he stole classified documents.
Yes.
Yeah. And tried to keep them. And now he is arguing that you can't charge me with the possession of those things unless I get a copy of them. Like, motherfucker, you're on trial because you had a copy of them. That's not how any of this shit works.
In your bathroom.
You think you're the first person?
With your ex-wife.
You think you're the first fucking person that's been put on trial for having classified documents you're not supposed to have? You don't get to keep versions of it in your fucking lawyer's folder? Are you out of your goddamn mind? And again, what's he gonna do? Go, I don't recognize that. Like, motherfucker, it doesn't matter. You had them. We have pictures of where you had them. They came in, they took them out.
Bathroom.
Yeah. Well, no, he took those. Let's be abundantly clear. There were classified documents in a bunch of those boxes. He had Waltine now to bring those boxes into his fucking office. In those boxes, he sifted through them for stuff he wanted to keep, classified documents, many of which were...
Showed him off by the pool to the Australian Prime Minister and whoever else.
Well, this is even a different part of it. Then he took those things out and he put them in other boxes in between pictures, framed pictures and magazine covers that he was keeping, to hide them in there as if that's part of his personal shit, and then put those boxes back without the classified documents in them. Now, let me tell you something about classified documents that are in file folders. They got page numbers, you dumb motherfucker. And if there are 8 pages in something and 6 of them are top secret, they're going to wonder why it went from page 1 and 2 to page 8 without the fucking other ones in there, because they're not supposed to be detached. It will say classified material contained within. It will have the summary of it. It'll have the back page of it. And then the stuff in the middle, the dangerous stuff, if that's not connected to those 3 pages aren't supposed to be gone. Just because they don't contain the classified information. They're how you track the classified information. So this dumb motherfucker thinks if I just take out page 6, they'll never notice that the fucking thing goes from page 5 to 7. And then they find them in this folder stuffed between 2 goddamn Time magazine covers, framed, put it on the floor, take a picture with a little fucking evidence tent next to it, and this dumb motherfucker goes, can I have another copy of that? Because there's this dude, one of the Saudi guys who I work with on this golf thing would like to take a look at what your plan for Iran is, so they know how to trigger it. So let's show the plan for responding to an Iranian attack to the guys who would love for us to attack Iran, so that they could create a false flag and force us into a situation that would automatically trigger that response. That's why that Iran response file was so fucking important, and why it had value. It's because this dumb motherfucker wanted to go, if you do, this says if A, B, or C happens, we have to do D. So if you can make A, B, or C happen, you're going to make the United States. The United States is, by the time we look up, we're going to attack Iran. Right. We'll have already done it before we even realize. So like that other than that, I have no opinion. But apparently he's
stop confessing to all of his crimes. He's been
right.
broadcasting his crimes since even before 2016.
Yeah.
So broadcasting everything, every accusation is a confession, but then everything else is a confession too. So he desperately wants to be stopped and caught. That's why he can't stop confessing. Because there's something in him. He's like, I'm a bad boy. I'm a bad boy. Punish me.
Oh yeah. Well,
Why his
if
name's
only
all over the Epstein logs. I bet he paid hookers to beat him and say nasty shit to him.
I don't think so. I think he's too.
Besides peeing on him, peeing is that's part of the humiliating.
Yeah, I don't think he does that. That's why he had them pee on the other bed. He finds that humiliating. I don't think he's into that stuff because I don't think he thinks he deserves it.
And he's a sundowning, adjudicated rapist, and he's a criminal, and the criming is endless. And even after he dies, we probably won't ever know everything he ever did to this country. But once he goes, the other question is, and as we wrap up, once he's gone, because the man can't live forever, thankfully, what happens to all of his minions?
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the compromat that they have on them, his minions? On Marjorie and Lauren and Ted. Ted Cruz made the pilgrimage, by the way, to Mar-a-Lago, and he has gotten so dumpy. He looks like Trump. He has like stress weight. So like he has like a gunt now, and he wears a big jacket to cover the gunt, and it doesn't work. Ted, because you're Donald Trump's subhuman toilet and bidet. You're just all of it. All of it is in there. It's disgusting. It's abhorrent to me. So anyone is loyal to him. Anyone.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
So Trump had to
return. To end on. Buy my book. It's a love story. It'll make you happy. It'll bring you joy. Do joyous things like sing with friends. And it's Galentine's and Valentine's this week. So eat all of the chocolate that you want. Treat yourself. It's okay.
Yeah.
I give you
chocolate, the original date rape drug. It was makes you feel like
caramel. You put caramel, little salted, dark chocolate, salted caramel. That's the key to my cold, dead heart right there.
Oh, there you go. We'll send you a Whitman sampler over the weekend.
Or a See's candy. I love the See's candy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Man, their dark chocolate, salted caramels are just like, that's the best candy in the whole world. Best.
We'll have that debate when the world settles down. Anyways, thank you so much, Tara Dublin, for being with us today. Pick up her book, TaraDublinRocks.com. All right, see you later. Bye. Bye. That is thank you. There she goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Tara Dublin does indeed rock. And why does that page just get gigantic every time I don't understand your strange little thing. If I try to shut the page with the that has, come here, you silly thing. I guess not. If I try to shut the page with the that gets my guests on the show, it just expands to the full size of the page to the monitor and blanks out everything else. No reason. It's just weird. Makes no sense at all. There we go. Hold on. Put this up in here, and then bring you guys in. And go back to the chat real quick. I will have a regular show this afternoon. Love you guys. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And I know this is a hill that that not a lot on our side of the aisle are going to die on. But anytime somebody has an exit ramp to be a better person, I'm going to give it to them. I'm not going to worry about being, Charlie Brown with the football because the standard outside has to matter to somebody. And again, most of the time when you're arguing with someone, especially maggots online, you're not really arguing with them. You're arguing with the person just over their left shoulder that's not fully bought in on what they're saying. And if you can exhibit, better control, better humor, better, interpersonal skills, and charm, you might win some ground that way. You might not convert the person you're talking to, but you will convince the person who's not fully bought in. You understand? That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. So just deal with it. And if you don't like it, I'll send the kidney for you. So, check yourself before you wreck yourself. no cat right now. I was just checking. I just realized the cat cam wasn't working, so I'm making some adjustments. Hopefully later on at the afternoon show, we'll have a cat. I'll give it a try. See if I can get one of them to come out. We shall see what we shall see.